Every single veteran has at least one of these 5, and the overwhelming majority of veterans have at least 3 of these 5. Now, the reason I'm pointing out these 5 above everything else is because these 5 serve as the standard or the staple for medical evidence while serving in the military. And this is across the board, whether you're a Marine, a soldier, airman, a seaman, that part's a joke, or even the Coast Guard. More importantly, the VA regards these 5 sources as the golden standard for medical evidence. These 5 are your entrance exam, which is often called your MEPS exam, your annual health assessments, so 1 per year. I'm going to lump all those up into one. And this includes your dental class exams and everything else, your pre-deployment and post-deployment health assessments. So that's 4, which of course you would have had to have deployed. And finally, your exit exam or your final physical. Comment below which of these 5 you have. And for me personally, I had all 5 and multiple health assessments along with multiple pre and post-deployment health assessments. The more, the better, and you'd be surprised at what is inside those things. So if you get value from this channel, like, subscribe, do all the things. I want this video to go into the hands of the veteran that actually needs this information. And by you watching this all the way through, really helps YouTube push this content to the veteran who needs it most. So back to what we're talking about here. The most common of these 5 are going to be your MEPS exam and your final physical by far, bar none. The VA will compare these 2 against each other, and at a baseline understanding, the VA is looking for pre-existing conditions and new complaints of conditions that you are claiming for service connection. The most common claim condition that existed prior to service is flat feet. Often you'll see a note in your MEPS exam, something about asymptomatic flat feet in your MEPS exam. But if you see this, the game completely changes. You are no longer looking for direct service connection. The basis is now aggravation. And in plain language, finding a diagnosis for flat feet in your military records means nothing at this point. What you need to prove is that your military service aggravated this condition. And this part is key here, so listen up. For aggravation claims, it's beyond its natural regression, meaning you already had flat feet. The question is not, did your military service make this condition worse? The question is, did your service make that condition worse beyond its natural regression, right? Our conditions naturally get worse, and that's often very difficult to prove. When it comes to your pre and your post-deployment health assessments, these are absolute money, and oftentimes you'll find one-liner complaints contained within these health assessments that you forgot and probably don't even know or that are in there in the first place. I'll give you an example of myself here. On one of my deployments to Afghan, I apparently complained about migraines during my post-deployment health assessment. I had no idea that a one-liner complaint was in there when I submitted that migraine claim in 2020. Luckily, I had a stellar CMP examiner, and the VA process actually worked. Well, kind of, because I was awarded 0% and had to do a higher level review because people clearly didn't do their job, but that's a different story, okay? The point remains, your pre and post-deployment health assessments are regarded by the VA as like your golden ticket, if you will, for service connection. Ideally, you would want a diagnosis while in service, but having a complaint that's similar to the claimed condition, like, hey doc, I have migraines, that would be a complaint similar to migraine headaches. The evidence required for service connection, and those become the basis for the Nexus. If you are able to request your C file or your service treatment records, you definitely want to look for all complaints, but this is the place that I would start. Your MEPS exam and your final physical, comparing those 2 together, your annual health assessments, and if this applies to you, your pre and post-deployment health assessments. Now, obviously, if you had these one-off, I went to sit call or I went to a battalion aid station or whatever that looks like for you, Obviously, medical evidence is medical evidence, but generally speaking, most veterans are going to find their medical evidence from service within those 5 categories, if you will. Your MEPS exam, your annual health assessments, your pre and your post-deployment health assessments, and then your final physical.